Well, welcome. Nice to see you, Trushar.
Hey,
And
nice to see you, Liz.
a very good friend of the Nutrition Collective. And we appreciate your time today to go through hints and tips and some advice on ChatGPT in particular, and artificial intelligence. I know your background is in the kind of journalism and tech world, and in particular, digital media content. But I know with the emerging rise of AI, that's something that's very much of interest to you at the moment, and an area of kind of expertise that you're looking into, that you're have joined us today to share that advice and that knowledge with us. So we really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to.
Great, great. Well, we'll dive straight in, shall we? So for everybody who's watching, just to give you a little bit of an overview of what we will be covering. You know, a lot of you may have already heard about AI and ChatGPT, but there may be a lot of you that it's new to. So we'd like to kind of go through what is it? What is AI? And in particular, you know, what is ChatGPT? Trushar, if you could fill us in on that one.
Yeah, so I think one thing that often is easy to confuse is when we use the term artificial intelligence, it sort of suggests that there's like knowledge or knowledge database behind ChatGPT, and the actual sort of technology which runs ChatGPT is what they call large language models. So effectively, you have these AIs that are scraping hundreds of millions, maybe billions of data sources, which are almost all sort of text sources, and trying to understand how these individual letters and these individual words sequence together, and then learning how they're structured, how they sort of sequence together, why one word is often seen after another word, but not before another word, for example. So that's like a very basic level. Multiply that by billions of examples, and the sort of the AI begins to learn the structure of those languages. And it can happen in English, which is most prominent because of the data sources available, but also other languages as well. And so what ChatGPT is effectively pulling in all of this sort of learning that these AI databases have constructed for themselves. And when you type in an interactive sort of sentence as you're talking to ChatGPT, it will try and return to you what it can best construct as the right sequences of letters and words, and respond with an answer. And it can look like a really great answer and a really intelligent answer. But I guess one thing that sometimes confuses people, it's not based on its sort of knowing the answer, but it's effectively just an incredibly high precision of sequencing of letters and words that are returning to you. And it's important to, I guess, to bear that in mind as we go through the sort of the session today. Why that type of interaction with a ChatGPT can be useful, but also what the limitations of that type of interaction can be as well.
Sure. So as we've also said here, that we're going to touch on intelligent searching. So as you said, it may come across as very clever, but actually we've got to ask the right questions to get the more intelligent answers and better answers. And I know we're going to delve in and we're going to do some demonstrations. And I put here, you know, a day in the life of a nutritional practitioner. So how, you know, in our arena and the world of healthcare and nutrition practitioners, how we can utilize it on a day-to-day basis. So we'll be, as I said, in our examples, we'll be delving a little bit deeper with that. And, you know, what we want everyone to get out of today, as we say, some hints and tips, some real life practical examples, how you can go away and use this for your business. So shall we delve into some topics?
Yes,
I put a few here, some suggestions that I think work well with, as I said, the day in the life of a practitioner. First one, I thought we could look at, you know, how to regulate blood sugar. You know, that's a hot topic. Well, it's a hot topic all of the time, but in particular at the moment, there's a lot of influencers and a lot of people talking around blood sugar regulation and the impact on people's health. But I thought it'd be quite useful to actually pull together some social media content, because that can be quite time consuming for a practitioner who, you know, the bulk of their day is, or our day is around obviously supporting clients and putting protocols together for clients. But we've also got to be marketeers as well, and utilize social media for that. So I think it'd be really useful to find out how ChatGPT in particular could help us.
Great. Well, let's have a go at this then. So
Right.
I'm just going to switch screens and get ChatGPT up and running so we can take a look. Okay, so you should hopefully be able to see this.
I can see this.
Yeah. So this is, for those of you not familiar with it, this is the basic prompt that you get when you look at ChatGPT. I'll just try and zoom in a little bit. And the main thing here is this sort of prompt box where you are effectively sending a message to ChatGPT. And this is where, you know, the real value of ChatGPT comes in, depending on the quality of what you're inputting. And it's like what you'll be familiar with when you're doing a sort of a Google search, but you can be much more conversational in your search and you'll understand that conversation. So you don't need to just put like random words in, but you can put in a full sentence or a conversation in a way that you'd normally ask a normal person, you know, a question, or, you know, get some more information from them. So with the first one, Louise, so could you remind me, so we want to, what would be the area that we want to look at here? So if you want
so the question we're asking is, what's the best way to regulate blood sugar through diet? So that's quite broad. This is the broad question, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly. So again, you could type this in Google search and you probably get sort of, you know, links to a bunch of sort of health websites. So let's see what we have that comes up here. So it's sort of going through a bunch of points at the moment. So, okay, let's see how it starts off. So regulating blood sugar through diet is essential for people with diabetes, pre-diabetes, or those looking to maintain stable blood sugar levels. Here are some effective strategies to help regulate blood sugar through diet. So here are a bunch of sort of bullet points that it's come up with sort of a sentence or two of explanation for each of them. It has a caveat at the end of this, which it does now as part of its sort of protocols. Remember, individual responses to diet can vary, especially for those with diabetes or other health conditions. It's crucial to work with a healthcare professional or a registered dietitian to create a personalized diet plan that meets your specific needs and health goals. But this is like a useful like first draft of sort of content that might be useful. Obviously, you wouldn't necessarily rely on this as being definitively accurate, and so as healthcare professionals, you still need to just look through this and make sure it seems to fit with what you'd be looking for. But again, you know, if you're looking at sort of writing an email to someone or publishing a report, or potentially writing sort of a blog post or sort of a newsletter, then this gives you a bit of a sort of a structure of different points that you might want to cover. And then you can also go into some of these in a bit more detail if you wanted to as well.
Could you also, Trushar, so you could take that as your first draft, and it's, I know it's got, so can you build on that? And could you say, use this content to write an Instagram post with hashtags and see what?
So let's say I want to promote tips to help with, what would we say, regulating blood sugar, right? So regulating blood sugar for a healthy diet on Instagram.
Okay.
And you suggest 5 Instagram posts for this. And then it's going to take some of the stuff that it's already produced to you, but now give you a few more details of how this might work as an Instagram post. So it's sort of generating a few examples.
Okay.
I'll just let it sort of finish and then I'll scroll up and take a look at some of this.
So it's kind of, again, giving you very good kind of first draft options that you, as you would advise, to sense check.
Absolutely.
anything.
And
And
it's quite
obviously,
useful in terms of the way it sort of structures it. So it gives you an example of a sort of different types of posts within this. So one idea could be a visual guide to low glycemic foods. So that could be one way of doing an Instagram post. And so it suggests like an image that you could use. So create a colorful infographic or collage featuring various low glycemic foods, such as whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and legumes, and then include a caption encouraging followers to incorporate these foods into their meals for better blood sugar. And then it even suggests, sort of a caption. And here you can see that it also suggests emojis here, like a green heart and a green, but also hashtags that might be relevant in terms of how people might try and find this sort of content on Instagram as well. And then it's given you a different idea, but on the same theme, meal prepping for blood sugar control. So here it's suggesting a photo of meal prepped containers filled with balanced meals. And then a caption again, giving you some tips on how to prepare healthy meals within that. Another idea, swap and win for blood sugar balance, create a side-by-side comparison of common high glycemic foods versus their alternative healthier versions. So like white rice versus quinoa or soda versus infused water. And then encourage followers to make these simple swaps for better blood sugar management. And then a few other ideas, how fiber supports blood sugar stability, mindful eating for blood sugar control. Again, it comes with ideas for hashtags. And also it usually follows with some sort of health warning or caveat, as it were. So remember to use relevant hashtags relevant to nutrition, diabetes, healthy eating, blood sugar regulation in each post. Also ensure that your posts provide accurate information and promote a balanced approach to health and wellness. So it also is like effectively making sure that you're not sort of going into like sensationalized claims, but you're maintaining a level of accuracy and consistency in the type of post that you want to do. As increasingly like platforms are quite strict on these sorts of posts where they want to ensure that like outlandish health claims or miracle cures aren't being overly promoted on these sorts of platforms.
So it's kind of in tune and in line with what would be allowed and recommended on Instagram, for example, as one social media platform. I know we've also talked in a previous discussion about the difference between, so it's obviously given us suggested headlines here for an Instagram post. If we also wanted to use that content, if we have our own website and want blog posts, and you've spoken before about the difference between a headline to generate SEO, so search engine optimization, and a headline for social media. So could we get that from ChatGPT as well?
So let's say, for example, can you convert the above 5 examples for stories I could publish on my website with great SEO headlines, and see what it comes up with here. So here we go. So it's given you those same 5 stories, but with slightly different headlines. And I think one thing that's useful to mention here is that quite often, headlines that are, or stories that are great for SEO are often not ones that do well on social media. And the reason is that the way users engage or discover this content is different on whether it's a Google search or depending on if it's like an Instagram feed or a Facebook feed, for example. So SEO generally, the main sort of headline idea is that you want to include all the key terms that someone might type in a Google search as close to the front of the headline as possible, because that's like one indicator that it's relevant to what the user is searching. And obviously there are some nuances with this, but here's a reason why. For example, blood sugar regulation made easy. So blood sugar regulation is like the first 3 words on this headline for that reason, because it's quite likely that those are the 3 terms that people are likely to read. And then, equal, blood sugar control here is like, 3 of the first 4 words in this headline. Whereas on an Instagram post or Facebook, it's much more about how do you hook a user into being interested in a video or a post when they're scrolling through their timeline. They're not necessarily proactively looking for this stuff. So it's more about how do you capture their interest. And so for that reason, the headlines will not necessarily focus on like key search terms, but just how do you hook that person into something that's relevant to them. So as an example, let's just say, can you convert the above 5 headlines into great Facebook post headlines?
I suppose the key here, the nutshell that you're saying is you've really got to be mindful when you're requesting content, what media you're going to be publishing on, because it will be tailored to that audience and also generate viewers or searchers, for want of a better phrase. So as we said at the beginning, intelligent search is you have to give quite a bit of detail to get out relevant information.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily going to proffer you things in anticipation of what you might need. So you often have to be like quite specific about what you want to get out of it. So in this example, from the earlier sort of engagements we had with it, it didn't give us like specific SEO friendly headlines or specific Facebook friendly headlines. But now that we've gone into it and just sort of interrogated what we want a little bit more, it's giving us more specific stuff. So just an example here, discover the power of, or meal prep like a pro. So none of these would be good SEO headlines, because the real SEO terms here are at the end of this sentence. For example, stable blood sugar, or control blood sugar. In this case, it's in the middle of the headline. So these headlines would be like very bad SEO, but here it gives you an idea of like how it could actually be very good for connecting with a user on a Facebook timeline or maybe an Instagram timeline.
Okay, excellent. So the key takeouts for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trushar. So for this example that we're doing, it's a good first step, a good first draft. Check the facts to make sure. It's good for drilling down, so add more information. So don't start doing new searches, drill down within your current search, because it will learn the more questions you ask. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it will get more specific and more detailed in this, what you're really looking for.
Yeah, and to be aware that the needs of Facebook, the needs of Instagram, the needs of your website or blog posts are very different, and it will provide that information as long as you ask it the right question.
Absolutely. And for those of you, if you're into like trying out videos, for example, you could ask it to, again, as an example, can you convert this into a script for a 30-second video? And then it'll give you, a sort of an idea of what a script could look like for a video. And you could try that on Instagram or maybe on YouTube as well. So then the more you drill into it, the more that's relevant to you, you'll be able to get more out of it and find different use cases from the same idea.
Okay. So for example, actually, what's just sprung to mind, if I was then doing a presentation for a group of people on blood sugar regulation, could I actually ask it to recommend PowerPoint presentation format? Would that work?
So let's have a see. So generally what works better is having different AI tools similar to ChatGPT that are specialized in presentations, for example. So you could, let's say if you have a bunch of these 5 bullet points, you could copy and paste that into a separate app and say, can you turn this into really good presentations? So there are tools like that sort of exist, and you can find them quite easily now if you just do sort of a fairly basic sort of search for these. But what you could do, let's try it as an example. Can you convert the 5 posts above into a PowerPoint? Oops.
Sorry, I put you on the spot there. Let's see what as we were talking, because I know a lot of practitioners do presentations to groups of people, corporate corporate events. So it's quite useful. Again, it's a first draft, isn't it? It's not your be all and end all presentation, but it's a good starting point that actually just saves us a lot of time. I think that's the key thing, that we wear several different hats. You know, we're a practitioner, we have one-to-one clients, we might do corporate activity, we're a marketeer with our social media and website development. So yeah.
Yeah, and so in this example, it says, you know, it can't create a PowerPoint presentation directly, but it can provide you with some content for the slides. And so it gives you here some directions of 5 slides about what, you know, the headline for the first slide, and then talk about, you know, what you want to talk about in that slide. So one of the things you could do is, for example, copy and paste the script that it's suggesting here, and then you put into one of these other presentation AI apps where you will then you just paste that text into it, and then it will create these sort of beautiful slides with this text. Right. So that's something
yeah.
what it could
I think
do.
that's quite a key point to make, actually, because, you know, at the beginning we talked about what we're talking about is AI, but a lot of the noise, for want of a better word, at the moment is around ChatGPT, because I think that's the one that's most prominent at the moment. But as you say, there are a lot more out there and doing maybe different things. I mean, this chat today is obviously around utilizing ChatGPT, but maybe we could do something in the future that delves into those other applications.
Absolutely, and there are a bunch of different AI apps that have lots of really interesting use cases, even from, you know, efficiency of being able to do work, or the way you collaborate as teams. If you're, you know, if you have a business but you have people working remotely and collaborating, then there are tools that could make that much easier as well. Or whether it's, you know, sort of timekeeping or just managing your diary and your appointments and meetings, having effectively like an AI powered virtual assistant. There's some really cool things that could work really well for small businesses as well. Excellent.
Shall we delve into another example, another demo? And this one was more around actually how we could use it with my practitioner hat on to help maybe with protocols. And I'd just be interested to see how what information it puts together. So if we could do a new one, maybe around the ketogenic diet and meal planning.
So so this would be like requesting a sort of a meal plan, right?
Requesting a meal plan around the ketogenic diet.
So shall we say a meal plan for a week?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let's.
I know you've said we've got to be cautionary about the information. So I'm assuming from that it's first draft. You know, you want to back this up with any research. So I know I use PubMed as my go-to for any research in this field. So again, back it up. But again, it's a first draft. So this looks like quite a high level.
And so, yeah, so absolutely. And it sort of gives you sort of a quick overview, explains what it understands by ketogenic diet as a high fat, moderate protein, low carbohydrate diet that forces the body to burn fats for energy instead of carbs. And then it does say, please note that individual dietary needs may vary. So it's essential to consult with a healthcare professional or registered dietitian before starting any new diet. But yeah, so if you had a client who you're trying to get going with a ketogenic diet, then this gives you a good sort of 7-day plan. And let's say your client has additional things that they like or don't like. So let's say I've noticed here that it's got avocados a few times. Let's say, can you provide a meal plan excluding avocados? For whatever reason, let's say your client decides that they don't like avocados, or similarly, you want to have a slightly more bespoke meal plan, then it should be able to then update the meal plan, taking out avocados. And so in this case, I noticed it's included like spinach instead of avocados.
It does actually swap it out. It doesn't just take it out. And are you able to kind of then get recipes from that? So you can maybe say, could you provide the recipes for day one?
Okay, can you provide the full recipes for all the meals on day one? And here we go. So it's giving you the ingredients, it's giving you the instructions for the breakfast meal, for lunch, including instructions, and same thing for dinner, including the instructions. And also giving you a snack option of macadamia nuts. So again, this is like really useful, saves you a bit of time. And also, I think the thing that often takes the most time is if you need to make it a little bit more bespoke rather than just a sort of off-the-shelf ketogenic sort of thing that you want to share with clients, so they have like specific requests. You know, another thing that might be worth considering is that you may have a client who's maybe more interested in having, you know, is more comfortable with, say, Chinese food or Indian food or Asian food or different types of diets. Then you can then ask it to, could you refine this meal plan, bearing in mind that I am, for example, living in Delhi, and it might then figure out, okay, I'm living in Delhi, therefore is likely to be Indian, and therefore likely to be more interested in sort of Indian food that might be relevant in the ketogenic diet, and then it can provide you similar examples of that.
Yeah, that's quite a key point, actually, because also a lot of the, recipe books and cookery books are always tailored probably more to a Mediterranean style version or European style version of a diet, that actually your clients, that might not be their cup of tea, for want of a better phrase. So then this can tailor it. Could we do a quick example of that on there to convert?
Yeah, so can you update the meal plan for someone, let's say, living in Delhi, and see how it understands that? Because it potentially could get all these ingredients in Delhi as well, but let's see if it sort of has an Indian sense to it. So yeah, it's replaced, I think probably eggs, I think it's replaced here with paneer. And then it's got tandoori chicken rather than regular chicken. And then maybe certain types of fish, which are more relevant, maybe, or available in India. Here it's included, you know, sort of chaat masala in roasted almonds as a snack instead of just macadamia nuts, which might be a bit too bland for their palate. And similarly, going down, you can see a lot more sort of tandoori cauliflower steaks, palak paneer, keto dosa, which again is quite a good use of the keto diet. So yeah, it's done it pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, it has. It's been, and as we keep saying, it's very, even though it's a first draft, it's actually saving an awful lot of time. I mean, this has been produced in seconds, and it wouldn't actually take an awful lot of time to then sense check this, but actually producing a 7-day meal plan and then tailoring it to a certain dietary regime is a very time-consuming task.
Absolutely. And one thing that might be really interesting, depending on the type of clients that you may have, is that you could potentially turn this into like a sort of a meal plan newsletter that could be sent out to clients, where you could do a series of like the ketogenic meal plan newsletter or something like that. And that's a way that maybe rather than doing like a full week's meal plan, you sort of highlight one interesting recipe per week or whatever, or it could be part of a broader newsletter that maybe you do, where you have a segment which is a ketogenic recipe idea.
Yeah, excellent. So actually, from a practitioner point of view, it is quite nuanced in that field of nutrition, and tailoring it very, very effectively to our individual needs. One thing that I just want to point out, obviously it's an American platform, because I noticed that a lot of the spellings are the American question. So that's one thing to also bear in mind if you are sending out a newsletter or doing a blog post or IG post and you're based in the UK, that you just want to just do that spell check as well to make sure it's the UK.
Or you can ask it to, can you convert this into English, English spelling rather than US spelling?
Yeah, hadn't thought of that. Right, thank you, Trushar. That has been extremely useful and very fascinating. And I think the key takeout for me really is the amount of time it will save, producing those first drafts. And actually some of the things that you showed us are a bit more detailed than a first draft, but will really save me a lot of time from a marketing perspective, promoting my business on social media and my website, and also helping me in my day-to-day practice with some great meal plan ideas and recipes. I know we haven't really touched on this as a business tool, but could this be used as a business tool? Is this something that we can maybe explore another time?
Yeah, absolutely. And there've been various examples that I've seen, and I'm sure I can share one example of a really great prompt, which is like quite detailed. It's like a paragraph of in terms of the detail. But what it does is effectively gets ChatGPT to ask you a series of questions to really understand what your business is and what your business goals are. And then builds out a sort of a business plan, almost like in collaboration with you. So it's almost like having a virtual business advisor. And the initial prompt, which is about a paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs long, it sets the background for ChatGPT to go through that process with you. And it's like a series of like 20 questions. It will ask you them, then you'll input your answers to all 20 of them. It then may ask follow-up questions and then give you a much more detailed overview of the potential for the business and how you could develop it. And that's obviously a much more involved process. It might take you an hour or two to really go through all of this. But that's just another example, like a really deep use case for it. Maybe a slightly lighter use case, but still a very business use case could be giving you ideas for how to frame an email for lead generation. So let's say you have a workshop that you do on, say, ketogenic diet, and you ask it to figure out what would be the right way of creating an email that could potentially drive business around that workshop, and give you ideas for which types of organizations or businesses might be most interested in this workshop. And so again, that just helps you get that bit further in terms of the way you're thinking about the way you want to develop that business from the marketing side of it as well.
Excellent. What would you say your kind of what key things would you like to get across today in terms of positives and negatives around AI and ChatGPT in particular?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it just comes down to, play around with it a little bit, because you'll find a much more natural way for you to interact with it. Try out like broad questions, very narrow questions. Try, going in and drilling down into an answer it's given and ask for more details about this point, or can you expand on X, and see where that sort of takes you. And I think one thing to be aware of, particularly when it comes to like being health practitioners, remember that this is not like a deep knowledge model. This is just purely language-driven responses. So think about what you would find useful. So like SEO ideas for your website, or Facebook headline ideas, it's great for. But if you want to ask it, what is the best remedy for this ailment, you would really trust that, take a lot more sort of suspicion with what it might say, because you want to be careful about that type of thing. So generally around those sorts of areas, you're the health practitioner, so you will know this better than it does. But where can you get this sort of enhanced or supplemental help? How can it help reduce your time and energy? I think that's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah,
brilliant. Excellent. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time and sharing your amazing knowledge about this subject. And for everybody who is watching and listening to this session, if you have any further questions, please do comment on whichever social media platform you are viewing this on, and we can maybe get Trushar back another time and we can delve a little deeper into other subjects. Thank you.
Thank you.